In the far reaches of the frozen mountains, where winter never truly leaves, silence rules the land. The wind sings across endless white valleys, and life survives only through patience and strength. Few humans choose to live here. Fewer still remain after decades of harsh winters. But one woman did at 75 years old. She walked these mountains every morning alone, steady and unafraid. She never expected that one quiet walk would save a life and change her own forever. Her name was Mira. She had lived in the mountains for over 40 years. Long ago, she had come here with her husband, a wildlife tracker who loved the silent beauty of snow-covered peaks. After he passed away, she stayed, not out of loneliness, but out of belonging. She learned the language of the wind, the rhythm of snowfall. The quiet paths of hidden animals. Every morning, she walked the same trail, checking the land, greeting the sky, and listening. The mountains were not empty to her. They were alive. On one winter morning, something unusual broke the silence. A faint sound. Not the wind, not shifting ice. A cry, soft, weak, desperate. Mira followed the sound carefully, brushing snow aside with her staff. Then she saw it, a deep frozen pit, hidden beneath a thin crust of snow. Inside, a snow leopard cub, alone, trapped, exhausted. Its tiny body trembled against the cold walls of ice. It had likely fallen during the night, and without help, it would not survive long. Mira did not hesitate. At 75, every movement required care, but compassion gave her strength. She secured a rope to a rock and slowly lowered herself into the frozen pit. The air was sharp. The walls were slick. The cub did not resist. It simply watched her with tired eyes. She wrapped it gently in her wool scarf, shielding it from the wind. Step by step, she climbed upward, holding life in her arms. When she reached the surface, she held the cub close to her chest, sharing warmth, sharing breath. The mountains were silent again, but something had changed. Inside her cabin, warmth returned slowly. She dried its fur. She offered small amounts of food. She stayed beside it through the night. Days passed. Strength returned to the small body. Curiosity replaced fear. The cub began to walk, to observe, to trust. Between the woman and the wild creature, a quiet understanding formed. Not ownership, not domestication, just care. When the cub was strong enough, Mira knew what must happen. The mountains had given life. The mountains must receive it. Back. She carried the cub to the place where sky meets stone. She knelt beside it one last time. No words were needed. The cub looked back once, then disappeared into the white horizon. Mira remained there quietly, not sad. Not alone, because kindness, once given, never truly leaves. And somewhere beyond the ridges, a snow leopard lived because one woman chose to act. Compassion has no age. Courage has no limits. Weeks passed. Winter deepened, painting the world in quiet white once again. Mira returned to her simple routines, tending the fire, walking the ridges, listening to the land she had known for decades. One morning, as pale sunlight touched the snow, she noticed something unusual near her cabin. Footprints, large, deliberate. Fresh, not the wandering marks of passing wildlife. These tracks had purpose. They led directly to her door. Mira stood still, her breath soft in the cold air. The mountains were bringing her a visitor. From the edge of the ridge, a figure appeared, graceful, silent, powerful, a snow leopard beside her. A familiar shape, the cub, no longer weak, no longer trembling. Its steps were steady now, guided by its mother's watchful presence. They did not approach with fear. They did not approach with urgency. They came with calm intention. Mira did not move forward. Respect is the first language of the wild. She simply stood and waited. The mother stepped forward slowly. In her jaws, she carried something carefully. She lowered it onto the snow. A rabbit. The cub approached next. Clumsily but proudly, before Mira, it placed a fish. Then both animals stepped back and waited. No sound broke the moment. No movement disturbed the stillness. In the language of survival, in the language of the mountains, this was gratitude, a gift, a recognition of life given. Returned with life sustained, Mira felt warmth rise in her chest despite the cold. She bowed her head slightly, not in ownership, not in control, but in shared existence. For a moment, 3 lives stood together, connected by compassion alone. The mother watched Mira carefully, not with fear, not with submission, but with awareness. A silent acknowledgement passed between them, ancient and wordless. "You helped my child. I remember." The cub lingered for a moment longer, curiosity bright in its eyes. Then, with a final glance, it turned to follow its mother. Together, they moved across the snow and returned to the vastness of the mountains. Their footprints slowly softened beneath falling snow, but the moment remained. That evening, the cabin glowed warmly once more. Mira prepared the food with care, not as a reward, but as a reminder. In a world often shaped by survival, compassion still finds its way across species, across silence, across generations. She looked toward the mountains as twilight painted the sky. Some bonds are never spoken, some gratitude is never demanded, and some kindness travels farther than we ever see, high among the ridges. A snow leopard and her cub moved freely through the snow, and in a quiet cabin below, an elderly woman smiled, knowing she was never truly alone in the world she loved. Kindness given to the wild returns in ways we cannot predict.